Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly beneath Lieutenant Commander Kestrel, Phoenix, Thorne's FA-18F Super Hornet, its surface reflecting the dying light of day like shattered glass. At 35,000 feet, the world seemed peaceful, almost serene. But peace was an illusion, one that would shatter in exactly 17 minutes when the unthinkable happened. The USS Nebraska, a Virginia-class submarine carrying enough nuclear firepower to level half the Pacific Rim, had gone completely dark. No communication, no transponder, no indication of what happened to the 134 souls aboard. Admiral Marcus Hawthorne stood in the Pentagon's crisis center, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of tactical displays, showing red zones spreading across the ocean like digital blood. 27 years of naval service had taught him to expect the unexpected, but this was different. This was the nightmare scenario every military commander prayed would never become reality. A nuclear submarine, lost in international waters, with hostile vessels converging on its last known position. "Sir, we have a civilian consultant requesting immediate access to the Situation Room," reported Captain Rivera, her voice tight with barely concealed frustration. "She claims she has critical information about the Nebraska's systems." Hawthorne didn't look up from the tactical display. "Tell whoever it is that we don't have time for." "Admiral!" The voice cut through the room like a blade, commanding attention despite its soft timbre. He turned to see a woman in her early 30s, wearing civilian clothes and a contractor's badge that seemed almost insulting in the gravity of the moment. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her green eyes held a steadiness that reminded him of pilots he'd known, the kind who flew into storms while others sought shelter. "And you are." Hawthorne's tone carried the dismissive edge of a man who had no patience for consultants during a crisis. "Kestrel Thorne. I designed the Nebraska's emergency protocols." She moved toward the central display with the confident stride of someone who belonged in rooms like this, despite the badge that suggested otherwise. "And right now, your submarine isn't lost, Admiral. It's hunting." The room fell silent except for the steady hum of electronics and the distant murmur of radio chatter. Hawthorne studied this woman who dared to contradict his assessment of the situation. Her civilian status was irrelevant now. The certainty in her voice was not. Something in her bearing suggested she knew exactly what she was talking about, and that terrified him more than the prospect of a lost submarine. "Explain," he said simply. Phoenix pulled up a chair without invitation, her fingers already dancing across the tactical interface with the familiarity of someone who had designed it. The real story was about to begin. 3 hours earlier, Phoenix had been reviewing technical specifications in her Arlington apartment when her encrypted phone buzzed with an emergency alert. The caller ID showed only a number she recognized from her Navy days, one that meant dropping everything and running. She had thrown on the first clothes she could find and caught the next helicopter to the Pentagon, her mind racing through the possibilities of what could require her immediate attention. The Nebraska wasn't just any submarine. It was her submarine, in the sense that she had spent 3 years of her life redesigning its tactical systems after leaving active duty. The official record showed Lieutenant Commander Kestrel Thorne, call sign Phoenix, had resigned her commission after a classified incident in the South China Sea. The unofficial truth was more complicated, involving recommendations for valor that became buried under layers of political maneuvering, and a command structure that couldn't handle the idea of a female pilot outflying their best male pilots in combat situations. Now, as she sat in the Pentagon's most secure briefing room, watching Admiral Hawthorne's skeptical expression soften into genuine concern, Phoenix realized that her civilian status might actually be an advantage. She wasn't bound by the same chains of command that were slowing down the response. She could speak truth to power without worrying about her next fitness report. "The Nebraska's emergency protocol isn't designed for communication," she explained, her fingers highlighting sections of the submarine's schematic. "It's designed for survival. When the boat goes dark, it means Captain Morrison has activated what we call Ghost Protocol, complete electromagnetic silence while the submarine assesses threats and prepares for engagement." Captain Rivera leaned forward, her earlier skepticism replaced by professional interest. Engagement with what? Phoenix's expression darkened. That's what we need to find out. But I can tell you this. Morrison doesn't activate Ghost Protocol unless he believes his submarine is under imminent threat of destruction. The Nebraska isn't lost, Admiral. It's preparing for war. The tactical display updated with new intelligence, showing foreign vessels converging on the submarine's last known position. Hawthorne felt the familiar weight of command settling on his shoulders, the burden of decisions that could reshape the geopolitical landscape. He looked at the woman across from him, this civilian consultant who seemed to understand his submarine better than his own naval intelligence officers. "What do you need from us, Miss Thorne?" "Commander Thorne," she corrected quietly, then softened her tone. "And I need to get out there. The Nebraska has a back-channel communication system that only activates in extreme situations. But someone has to be in the air at exactly the right frequency and altitude to receive the signal. We have pilots." "Not like me." Phoenix's interruption carried no arrogance, only certainty. "Admiral, I designed that system. I know that submarine like it's my own child. And right now, Captain Morrison and his crew are sitting in a steel tube at the bottom of the Pacific, surrounded by hostile forces, waiting for someone to tell them they're not alone." The flight deck of the USS Gerald R. Ford buzzed with controlled chaos as Phoenix suited up in borrowed flight gear. The Super Hornet assigned to her mission bore the number 207 and carried modifications she had never seen before, additional communications equipment that transformed the fighter into a flying relay station. The deck crew worked with practiced efficiency, but she could feel their curious glances. Word had spread quickly through the ship's communication networks. A civilian woman was about to take one of their most advanced fighters into a potential combat zone. Lieutenant Jake "Hammer" Rodriguez, the squadron's operations officer, approached with her mission briefing. His expression was professionally neutral, but Phoenix could read the skepticism in his posture. She had seen that look before, the barely concealed doubt that followed her throughout her naval career like a persistent shadow. "Ma'am, we've uploaded the communication protocols to your aircraft systems. Your patrol area is designated Alpha 7, approximately 50 nautical miles from the Nebraska's last known position." "Any word on the foreign vessels?" Phoenix asked, adjusting her helmet's communication system with the muscle memory of thousands of hours in cockpits. "Chinese destroyers, ma'am. 3 of them, running dark and maintaining radio silence. Intelligence suggests they're tracking the same underwater contact we lost." Hammer's voice carried the professional courtesy required when addressing a senior officer, but Phoenix could hear the underlying tension. Everyone on the ship understood the implications of Chinese warships converging on an American nuclear submarine. Phoenix nodded, running through her pre-flight checklist with mechanical precision. The familiar routine of preparing for flight helped calm the storm of emotions churning in her chest. It had been 2 years since she last flew a combat mission, 2 years since she traded the wings of naval aviation for the civilian world of defense contracting. But as she settled into the Super Hornet's cockpit, muscle memory took over. Her hands found the controls without conscious thought, and the aircraft responded like an extension of her own body. "Tower, this is Phoenix requesting departure clearance," she transmitted, using her old call sign without thinking. The name felt right on her lips, more natural than the civilian identity she had worn for the past 2 years. "Phoenix Tower, you are cleared for immediate departure. Good hunting." The controller's voice carried a warmth that surprised her, a reminder that despite everything that had happened, this was still her world. These were still her people. The Super Hornet's twin engines spooled up with a familiar roar, and Phoenix felt the carrier deck fall away beneath her. The Pacific Ocean spread out below like a vast blue desert, hiding secrets in its depths that could determine the fate of nations. Somewhere down there, Captain Morrison and his crew waited in their steel sanctuary, trusting that help would come. At Angels 25, Phoenix established her patrol pattern over the designated search area. The ocean below appeared deceptively calm, its surface broken only by the occasional whitecap. But beneath those waves, she knew, lay a complex underwater battlefield where sonar signatures danced like ghosts and submarine crews played a deadly game of cat and mouse. Her aircraft's modified communication scanned multiple frequencies simultaneously, searching for the Nebraska's emergency beacon that might never come. "Overwatch, this is Phoenix on station," she transmitted to the carrier's Combat Information Center. "Beginning systematic sweep of communication frequencies. No contacts at this time." The response came from a voice she didn't recognize, probably a junior officer manning the radio during the evening watch. "Phoenix, Overwatch. Maintain current patrol altitude and continue monitoring. Be advised, we're tracking 3 surface contacts approaching your area from the northwest." Phoenix adjusted her radar display, immediately identifying the Chinese destroyers running in formation approximately 40 miles away. Their course would bring them directly through the search area within the next 2 hours, turning an already complex situation into a potential international incident. The rules of engagement were clear but limited. Avoid direct confrontation while maintaining surveillance over American interests. It was the kind of delicate balance that could explode into something much larger with a single wrong move. Her radio crackled with a burst of static, then cleared. Phoenix fine-tuned the frequency, recognizing the distinctive pattern of encrypted military communication attempting to break through underwater interference. The Nebraska's emergency system was trying to establish contact, but the signal was fragmented, incomplete. She needed to get lower, closer to the water, despite the increased risk of detection by the approaching Chinese vessels. "Overwatch, Phoenix. I'm picking up possible communication attempts from submerged contact. Request permission to descend to Angels 15 for better signal reception." "Negative, Phoenix. Maintain current altitude. Chinese surface vessels are actively scanning the area with search radars." Phoenix gripped the control stick tighter, frustration building in her chest. The bureaucratic caution that had driven her from active duty was still there, still prioritizing protocol over results. Captain Morrison and his crew were trapped underwater, possibly under direct threat, while she flew circles at a safe altitude that made meaningful communication impossible. The old anger began to resurface, the same fury that had ended her naval career when she chose mission success over following orders. "Overwatch, I'm reading definite transmission attempts on the emergency frequency. The submarine is trying to communicate, but I need to get closer to establish a clear link." "Phoenix, maintain assigned altitude. That's an order." She looked down at the endless expanse of ocean, knowing that somewhere beneath those waves, 134 American sailors were depending on her to bridge the gap between their underwater world and the surface forces that could provide assistance. The decision came naturally, instinctively, the same way it always had. Phoenix pushed the Super Hornet's nose down, descending through 15,000 feet toward the deck. Her aircraft's radar warning receiver began chirping softly as Chinese search radars swept across her position, but she ignored the electronic protests. At 8,000 feet, the Nebraska's emergency signal suddenly strengthened, resolving into recognizable patterns of encrypted communication. The submarine was alive, active, and trying desperately to establish contact with the surface world. "Overwatch, Phoenix. I have established communication with submerged contact. Patching through encrypted channel now." She didn't wait for approval, immediately switching her radio to the frequency that would connect the Pentagon directly with Captain Morrison's submarine. The voice that emerged from the static was strained but controlled, carrying the distinctive cadence of submarine communication. "Surface contact, this is Nebraska Actual. We are tracking multiple hostile submarines in our immediate vicinity. Request immediate tactical support." Admiral Hawthorne's voice cut through the transmission from the Pentagon. "Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Hawthorne. Report your status and position." "Admiral, we have been tracking 4 Chinese submarines for the past 6 hours. They have been attempting to force us toward international boundary lines using active sonar harassment. We activated Ghost Protocol when they began simulating attack runs on our position. Sir, I believe they are trying to force an international incident." Phoenix maintained her low altitude despite the increasing intensity of radar sweeps from the Chinese destroyers. The political implications of Morrison's report were staggering. If Chinese submarines were actively harassing an American nuclear submarine in international waters, it represented an escalation that could trigger a larger conflict. Her aircraft's electronic warfare suite painted a complex picture of underwater activity, confirming the presence of multiple submarines maneuvering in the area. Nebraska, Phoenix. I'm tracking multiple surface contacts approaching your position. Chinese destroyers running in formation and increasing speed. Recommend you maintain current depth and prepare for possible coordinated harassment campaign. Phoenix, Nebraska. Roger that. We're ready for whatever they throw at us, but we need surface support if this situation escalates further. Admiral Hawthorne's voice returned to the channel. Captain Morrison, you are authorized to defend your vessel using all necessary means. Phoenix, what's your assessment of the tactical situation? Phoenix studied her displays, processing the complex dance of surface ships, submarines, and aircraft converging on this patch of ocean. The Chinese were coordinating their approach, using both surface vessels and submarines to create maximum pressure on the American submarine. It was a classic intimidation tactic, designed to force the Nebraska to either retreat or make a mistake that could be used to justify further escalation. Admiral, this is a coordinated operation designed to test our response to submarine harassment in international waters. The Chinese are probing our willingness to defend our strategic assets outside our territorial boundaries. They're not looking for a fight. They're looking for intelligence on our response protocols and decision-making processes. The radio fell silent for several seconds as the implications of her assessment sank in across multiple command centers. The silence stretched across the communication channel as military leaders on both sides of the Pacific processed the tactical situation. Phoenix maintained her patrol at low altitude, her aircraft now fully exposed to Chinese radar systems, but providing the critical communication link between the submarine and surface forces. The Super Hornet's engines hummed steadily as she adjusted her flight path to maintain optimal signal strength with the Nebraska. Phoenix, be advised that Chinese destroyers have increased speed and are now on direct intercept course with your position, came the warning from Overwatch. Estimate contact in 37 minutes. Captain Morrison's voice emerged from the depths, calm despite the pressure his crew was experiencing. Admiral, we're detecting increased sonar activity from multiple directions. The Chinese submarines are coordinating their positions to surround us. They're trying to box us in before their surface vessels arrive. Phoenix could visualize the underwater tactical situation developing beneath her aircraft. 4 Chinese submarines were maneuvering to create a perimeter around the Nebraska, while 3 destroyers approached from the surface to complete the encirclement. It was a textbook harassment operation, designed to create maximum psychological pressure without actually firing weapons. The Chinese were betting that American commanders would choose de-escalation over confrontation, allowing them to establish a precedent for future operations. Admiral Hawthorne, Phoenix, I'm observing coordinated movement patterns that suggest this operation was planned well in advance. The Chinese submarines were already in position when the Nebraska encountered them, which means they were waiting for an American submarine to enter this area. Explain your reasoning, Phoenix. Hawthorne's voice carried the sharp attention of a commander recognizing a critical insight. Sir, the tactical positioning is too precise to be coincidental. They knew an American submarine would be transiting this route, and they prepared an intercept operation designed to test our response protocols. This isn't random harassment. It's intelligence gathering disguised as intimidation. The implications of Phoenix's analysis rippled through the command structure. If the Chinese had advanced knowledge of American submarine movements, it suggested either a serious intelligence breach or surveillance capabilities that exceeded current assessments. Either possibility represented a significant threat to submarine operations throughout the Pacific theater. Captain Rivera's voice joined the conversation from the Pentagon. Phoenix, What evidence supports your assessment of advanced positioning? Ma'am, the Chinese submarines are maintaining perfect geometric positions relative to each other, which requires pre-planned coordination. Their sonar patterns suggest they've been waiting in these positions for extended periods. Their engines are running at optimized cruise settings, not the emergency speeds you'd expect from vessels responding to a contact. Below the surface, Captain Morrison was fighting his own battle against the psychological pressure of being surrounded by hostile forces. The Nebraska's crew maintained their stations with professional discipline, but everyone aboard understood the precarious nature of their situation. The tactical situation continued to evolve as the Chinese destroyers closed the distance to the search area. Phoenix maintained her communication relay position despite increasingly aggressive radar sweeps from the approaching vessels. Her aircraft's electronic warfare suite indicated that the Chinese ships were now actively attempting to jam communication frequencies, trying to sever the link between the submarine and surface forces. Nebraska, Phoenix. I'm detecting electronic warfare activity from surface contacts. They're trying to jam our communication channels. Phoenix, Nebraska. We're experiencing intermittent signal degradation. Can you boost transmission power? Phoenix adjusted her communication settings, pushing her aircraft's transmitters to maximum output. The Super Hornet's modified electronic suite had been designed for exactly this type of situation, but she knew the increased power output would make her aircraft even more visible to Chinese sensors. Every choice now carried consequences that extended far beyond her immediate mission. Overwatch, Phoenix. Chinese destroyers are now jamming communication frequencies. Request permission to activate electronic countermeasures. Negative, Phoenix. Do not activate offensive electronic warfare systems. Maintain current position and communication relay only. The restriction frustrated Phoenix, but she understood the political sensitivity of the situation. Activating electronic countermeasures against Chinese vessels would represent an escalation that could justify retaliation. She was walking a tightrope between mission requirements and international law, trying to support the Nebraska without providing justification for Chinese aggression. Admiral Hawthorne's voice cut through the static with new orders. Phoenix, we're dispatching additional surface vessels to your area. The USS Fitzgerald and USS Curtis Wilbur are en route from their patrol areas. Estimated time of arrival is 4 hours. Admiral understood. But sir, the Chinese surface vessels will arrive in 23 minutes. The Nebraska may not have 4 hours. Captain Morrison's voice returned to the channel, strained but determined. Admiral, we're tracking torpedo launch preparations from at least 2 of the Chinese submarines. They're not loading warheads, but they're simulating attack procedures. This is getting very serious very quickly. The escalation was following a predictable pattern. Harassment becoming intimidation. Intimidation becoming simulated attack potentially becoming actual violence. Phoenix had seen similar progressions during her active duty tour, situations where military professionalism was the only thing standing between routine operations and international incidents. Nebraska, Phoenix. I'm repositioning to provide better overwatch of your tactical situation, maintaining communication relay and electronic surveillance. Phoenix, be advised that we're detecting increased submarine activity throughout the region. This operation is larger than we initially assessed. The scope of the Chinese operation was becoming clear. This wasn't just harassment of a single American submarine. It was a coordinated demonstration of power designed to send a message about Chinese control over strategic areas of the Pacific Ocean. Phoenix adjusted her flight pattern to maintain optimal positioning as the Chinese destroyers entered visual range on the horizon. Through her aircraft's advanced optical systems, she could see the sleek silhouettes of modern warships cutting through the Pacific swells, their imposing presence a stark reminder of the delicate balance of power playing out beneath the waves. The destroyers maintained perfect formation, their movements coordinated with military precision that spoke to months of planning and preparation. Phoenix, Overwatch. Chinese vessels are now transmitting on international maritime frequencies, claiming sovereignty over the area and demanding departure of all foreign vessels. The diplomatic implications of the Chinese claims were staggering. If accepted, they would establish precedent for Chinese control over vast areas of international waters, effectively creating a maritime exclusion zone that could strangle commercial shipping throughout the region. Phoenix understood that she was witnessing the opening moves of a much larger strategic confrontation. Admiral Hawthorne, Phoenix. The Chinese vessels are broadcasting sovereignty claims over international waters. This appears to be a coordinated effort to establish territorial control through military pressure. Phoenix, continue monitoring and relay all communications. Do not respond to Chinese transmissions directly. Below the surface, Captain Morrison was dealing with the immediate tactical reality of being surrounded by hostile submarines. The Nebraska's sonar operators tracked multiple contacts maneuvering in coordinated patterns, their movements designed to maximize psychological pressure while avoiding actions that could be definitively classified as acts of war. Admiral, Nebraska. The Chinese submarines are now conducting simulated attack runs every 15 minutes. They're maintaining weapons safety protocols, but the intimidation factor is significant. My crew is performing admirably under extreme stress, but we need some indication of support from surface forces. Phoenix could hear the strain in Morrison's voice despite his professional composure. Submarine warfare was as much psychological as tactical, and the Chinese were applying pressure with surgical precision. The Nebraska's crew was effectively trapped underwater, surrounded by hostile forces, with only Phoenix's aircraft providing their connection to the outside world. Nebraska, Phoenix. I'm observing coordinated surface movement that suggests the destroyers are preparing to establish a patrol perimeter around your position. They're trying to create a controlled zone where they can escalate pressure without risking intervention from other American forces. Phoenix, understood. We're prepared for extended operations, but the tactical situation is becoming increasingly complex. Admiral Hawthorne's voice returned with new intelligence. Phoenix, Nebraska. We're receiving reports of similar operations in 3 other areas of the Pacific. This appears to be a coordinated campaign designed to test American response protocols across multiple theaters simultaneously. The scope of Chinese operations was expanding beyond anything Phoenix had anticipated. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a comprehensive strategy to challenge American naval presence throughout the Pacific Ocean. The Chinese destroyers reached their planned positions and began establishing a patrol pattern that effectively cordoned off the area where the Nebraska lay submerged. Phoenix watched the surface vessels through her targeting systems, noting the professional precision with which they executed their maneuvers. These were not rogue commanders acting independently. This was a carefully orchestrated operation with clear strategic objectives. Overwatch, Phoenix. Chinese vessels have established perimeter patrol. They're maintaining international legal boundaries while creating maximum pressure on submerged contact. Phoenix, Overwatch. Intelligence indicates that Chinese state media is preparing to broadcast claims of American submarine intrusion into Chinese territorial waters. They're building a narrative to justify their actions. The information warfare component of the operation was becoming clear. The Chinese were not just applying military pressure, they were preparing to shape international perception of the incident to support their territorial claims. Phoenix understood that every action taken in response would be scrutinized and potentially used to justify further escalation. Captain Morrison's voice emerged from the depths with growing urgency. Admiral, we're detecting active torpedo guidance systems from multiple Chinese submarines. They're not weapons ready, but they're simulating target acquisition procedures. The harassment is escalating to simulated attack. Nebraska, maintain defensive posture and document all hostile actions. Phoenix, are you recording Chinese vessel activities? Affirmative, Admiral. Full-spectrum electronic surveillance is active and being transmitted to intelligence centers. Phoenix adjusted her aircraft surveillance systems to capture maximum detail of Chinese operations. The intelligence value of the information she was gathering could influence American Pacific strategy for years to come, providing insight into Chinese tactics, capabilities, and decision-making processes. Phoenix, be advised that we're detecting increased Chinese military communication activity throughout the region. Multiple naval facilities are coordinating with the vessels in your area. The communication intercepts confirmed Phoenix's assessment of the operation's scope. This was not a local commander making independent decisions. This was a strategic operation coordinated at the highest levels of Chinese military command. The implications for regional stability were profound. Admiral Phoenix, based on communication patterns and tactical coordination, I assess that this operation was planned and approved at strategic command level. The Chinese are implementing a comprehensive plan to establish de facto control over disputed maritime areas. Phoenix, continue surveillance and maintain communication relay. Additional assets are en route, but we need to avoid escalation while gathering maximum intelligence on Chinese capabilities and intentions. Below the surface, the Nebraska's crew continued their silent vigil, surrounded by hostile forces, but supported by the knowledge that their actions were being monitored and documented by friendly forces. The psychological pressure was immense, but their training and professionalism were holding firm. As the standoff entered its 6th hour, Phoenix observed subtle changes in the tactical situation that suggested a shift in Chinese strategy. The submarines had ceased their simulated attack runs and were now maintaining static positions, while the surface destroyers had altered their patrol patterns to create wider intervals between vessels. The change was tactically significant, indicating either preparation for escalation or a planned withdrawal. Admiral Phoenix, I'm observing tactical repositioning by Chinese forces that suggests a change in operational status. Submarine contacts have ceased active harassment and assumed defensive positions. Phoenix, we're receiving diplomatic communications through embassy channels indicating Chinese willingness to negotiate de-escalation of the current situation. The diplomatic overture came as no surprise to Phoenix. The Chinese had accomplished their primary objectives. They had demonstrated their ability to harass American submarines in international waters, gathered intelligence on American response protocols, and created a precedent for future operations. Now they could withdraw while claiming diplomatic victory through peaceful resolution of tensions. Captain Morrison's voice confirmed the tactical assessment. Admiral, Chinese submarines are withdrawing to minimum safe distance and maintaining passive sonar only. The immediate threat has decreased significantly. Nebraska, Phoenix, can you confirm Chinese surface vessel intentions? Phoenix, the destroyers are maintaining patrol positions, but have reduced their electronic warfare activities. Communication jamming has ceased. Admiral Hawthorne's voice carried the measured tone of a commander managing a complex political-military situation. Phoenix, Nebraska, begin gradual de-escalation procedures while maintaining full surveillance of Chinese activities. Document all movements and communication for post-incident analysis. Phoenix understood that the incident was transitioning from active crisis to intelligence-gathering operation. The immediate threat to the Nebraska had decreased, but the strategic implications of Chinese actions would influence American naval policy for years to come. Her role was evolving from communication relay to intelligence platform, documenting every aspect of Chinese capabilities and procedures. Admiral Phoenix, Chinese vessels are broadcasting on international frequencies, requesting acknowledgement of their territorial claims and coordination of vessel movements to avoid future incidents. Phoenix, do not respond to Chinese communications directly. All diplomatic contact will be handled through appropriate channels. The Chinese were attempting to establish precedent through official communication, trying to get American forces to acknowledge their territorial claims through practical cooperation. Phoenix recognized the diplomatic trap Any acknowledgement of Chinese authority in the area could be used to justify future territorial claims. Nebraska, Phoenix. How is your crew holding up after extended harassment operations? Phoenix, my crew performed exceptionally under extreme pressure. We're ready to continue operations or withdraw as ordered. The professionalism of the Nebraska's crew had been tested under the most challenging circumstances, and they had maintained their discipline and effectiveness throughout the crisis. As the tactical situation stabilized, Phoenix found herself reflecting on the broader implications of what she had witnessed. The incident represented a fundamental shift in Pacific maritime strategy, with China demonstrating its willingness to use coordinated military pressure to challenge American naval presence in international waters. The professional execution of the operation suggested extensive planning and preparation, indicating that similar incidents could be expected in the future. Admiral, Phoenix. Based on observed Chinese capabilities and coordination, I assess that this operation represents a new tactical doctrine for maritime territorial disputes. The precision and coordination suggest extensive training and preparation for similar future operations. Phoenix, your assessment is consistent with intelligence evaluations from other agencies. This appears to be part of a comprehensive strategy to establish Chinese maritime control through coordinated pressure operations. The strategic analysis was sobering. China had demonstrated the ability to conduct sophisticated multi-platform operations that tested American response capabilities while remaining within the boundaries of international law. They had gathered valuable intelligence while establishing precedents for future operations, all while maintaining diplomatic plausibility. Captain Morrison's voice emerged from the depths with professional assessment. Admiral, the Chinese submarine crews demonstrated exceptional tactical proficiency and coordination. Their harassment procedures were textbook perfect, suggesting extensive training and preparation for this type of operation. Nebraska, Phoenix. What was your assessment of their technological capabilities? Phoenix, their sonar systems and communication coordination exceeded our previous intelligence estimates. They were able to maintain precise positioning and timing throughout the operation, suggesting advanced command and control capabilities. Admiral Hawthorne's voice carried the weight of strategic responsibility. Phoenix, Nebraska. Begin withdrawal procedures while maintaining surveillance of Chinese activities. We need to analyze all collected intelligence and prepare for similar future incidents. Phoenix understood that her role in the incident was concluding, but the implications of what she had witnessed would influence her future in ways she could not yet comprehend. She had demonstrated capabilities that extended far beyond her official civilian status, proving herself as a critical asset in complex military operations. Admiral, Phoenix, initiating withdrawal to safe distance while maintaining electronic surveillance. Chinese vessels are maintaining their positions but have ceased active harassment activities. Phoenix, well done. Your performance in this incident has been exceptional. Report to debriefing upon return to carrier. The acknowledgement carried weight beyond simple professional recognition. Phoenix had proven herself in a crisis situation, demonstrating the skills and judgment that had once made her one of the Navy's most respected pilots. The incident had reminded everyone involved of her true capabilities, regardless of her civilian status. As she prepared to depart the area, Phoenix took one final look at the ocean below, knowing that the Nebraska and its crew were safe, but understanding that this incident represented only the beginning of a larger strategic confrontation. Phoenix guided her Super Hornet away from the tactical area, climbing to cruising altitude as the Chinese vessels gradually faded from her radar displays. The mission had been a success in terms of immediate objectives. Communication had been maintained with the Nebraska, intelligence had been gathered on Chinese capabilities, and the crisis had been de-escalated without loss of life or equipment. But the broader implications of the incident would resonate through military and political circles for months to come. Overwatch, Phoenix, departing tactical area and returning to Mother. Chinese vessels maintaining positions, but no longer actively harassing submerged contact. Phoenix, Overwatch. Outstanding work out there. The Admiral wants to see you immediately upon landing. The acknowledgement carried undertones that Phoenix recognized from her active duty days. Her performance during the crisis had been noted at the highest levels, and the immediate debriefing request suggested that her future role might be under consideration. The civilian consulting contract that had brought her to the Pentagon was clearly insufficient to contain her capabilities and potential contributions. As she flew back toward the carrier, Phoenix processed the tactical lessons learned during the incident. The Chinese had demonstrated sophisticated coordination between surface and submarine forces, advanced electronic warfare capabilities, and a strategic doctrine that challenged traditional American dominance in Pacific waters. Future incidents would require equally sophisticated responses, combining technological capabilities with tactical innovation and strategic thinking. Her radio crackled with a direct transmission from Admiral Hawthorne. "Phoenix, this is Admiral Hawthorne. I want to speak with you personally after your debriefing. Your performance today has been exemplary, and we need to discuss your future role in similar operations." Admiral, understood. I'm honored to have been able to contribute to the mission's success. Phoenix, your contribution went far beyond what we expected from a civilian consultant. Your tactical analysis and communication skills were critical to resolving this situation without escalation. We need officers with your capabilities and experience. The implication was clear, though unstated. The Navy was reconsidering her civilian status, recognizing that her skills were too valuable to be limited by bureaucratic categories. Phoenix felt a familiar stirring of excitement at the prospect of returning to active duty, but also wariness about the political dynamics that had driven her to resign her commission in the first place. "Admiral, I appreciate your confidence in my abilities. I look forward to discussing how I can best serve in future operations." The carrier appeared on the horizon, its flight deck busy with aircraft recovery operations. Phoenix began her approach procedures, preparing to land on the floating airfield that had once been her home. The familiar rhythm of carrier operations surrounded her, the precise choreography of deck crews, the controlled chaos of aircraft movement, the professional efficiency that characterized naval aviation at its finest. As she trapped aboard the USS Gerald R. Ford, Phoenix realized that the mission had changed her as much as she had changed it. The debriefing lasted 3 hours, covering every aspect of the incident from initial contact with the Nebraska through final withdrawal from the tactical area. Phoenix provided detailed analysis of Chinese capabilities, tactical coordination, and strategic implications, while senior intelligence officers took notes and asked penetrating questions. Her civilian status seemed increasingly irrelevant as her military expertise became apparent to everyone in the room. Captain Rivera led the debriefing with professional thoroughness, focusing on intelligence value and operational lessons learned. "Commander Thorne, your assessment of Chinese tactical coordination suggests a level of preparation that exceeds our previous estimates. Can you elaborate on the implications for future operations?" "Ma'am, the Chinese demonstrated the ability to coordinate complex multi-platform operations with precision timing and professional execution. This suggests extensive training, advanced communication systems, and strategic doctrine, specifically designed to challenge American naval operations. Future incidents will likely follow similar patterns, but with increased sophistication and coordination." Admiral Hawthorne entered the briefing room as Phoenix completed her tactical assessment. His presence immediately elevated the discussion from operational debriefing to strategic planning session. "Commander Thorne, your performance today demonstrated capabilities that we cannot afford to waste on civilian consulting contracts. I'm offering you immediate reinstatement to active duty, with promotion to full commander and assignment to strategic operations planning." The offer was exactly what Phoenix had hoped for during her civilian years, but also what she had feared might never come. The Navy was acknowledging her value and offering her the career advancement that should have come years earlier. But acceptance would mean returning to the political dynamics and bureaucratic constraints that had frustrated her enough to resign her commission. "Admiral, I'm honored by your offer and your confidence in my abilities. May I have some time to consider the implications and requirements?" "Of course, Commander. But I want you to understand that what happened today demonstrates the Navy's need for officers who can think strategically and execute tactically under extreme pressure. Your skills are exactly what we need for the challenges we're facing in the Pacific theater." Phoenix understood the subtext of Hawthorne's offer. The Chinese incident was not an isolated event, but part of a larger strategic competition that would require the Navy's best personnel in critical positions. Her civilian status had been a luxury the Navy could afford during peacetime, but rising tensions required military professionals in military roles. "Admiral, I appreciate the opportunity to serve again. My experience today reminded me of why I chose naval aviation as a career, and I'm committed to contributing to American security in whatever capacity serves best." "Excellent, Commander. Take the time you need, but understand that similar incidents are likely to occur with increasing frequency. We need experienced leaders who can handle complex tactical situations while understanding their strategic implications." As the debriefing concluded, Phoenix realized that her civilian interlude was ending, and her military career was being reborn under circumstances she could never have anticipated. Later that evening, Phoenix stood on the carrier's flight deck, watching the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. The events of the day had transformed her from civilian consultant to active participant in a strategic competition that would define American naval power for years to come. The